Shravanam Mananam Nidhidhyasanam. Listen, reflect and absorb. Dear listeners, Sai Ram and welcome to our radio series in which a divine discourse by Bhagawan is played in small parts, and following each part a short discussion is undertaken to reflect on the message. Today's episode was first broadcast live on 31st March 2016. The discourses undertaken for study in this program are from the series of discourses delivered as part of the summer course in Indian Culture and Spirituality, 1991. Have a listen, please.
Offering a most loving pranams at Bhagawan's lotus feet. Dear listeners, we welcome you to this week's episode of Shravanam Mananam Nidhidhyasanam. Going through the 1991 summer course series, we've been through 2 discourses so far. We started the 3rd discourse, and for those of us who've been with us in this season of Shravanam Mananam Nidhidhyasanam, you would know that it's a step up in the syllabus. As we go through the discourse, we can see that it's becoming even more profound, and it definitely needs all our attention. And I think with all of that, it still would be a challenge to understand and follow Swami. But as always, with prayers to Swami, we will begin this journey again today for this week's show. But before that, as always, Sar Prakash is here. I'll invite him to join all of us. Saram, Sar Prakash.
Saram Prem, what you said is perfectly right.
Swami starts this discourse itself by saying that for the visible world, for everything that is phenomenal, which is seen and seeable, there is something which is hidden.
Yes.
And that forms the essence of what is seen. And it's really quite obvious in that sense. In fact, in the previous discourse, Swami speaks about the pramanas, the different types of pramanas,
right,
and how God is beyond all those pramanas, and that's why he's called aprameya.
Yes.
One of the pramanas which Swami would very often refer to is, that the inference of that which is unseen.
Okay.
A typical example is when you walk into a forest and you see a group of cranes. Some would say, which means there is a water body nearby.
Right.
Or you see a smoke rising from somewhere, you know that something is burning.
Correct.
So this is, you don't see it, you always infer. You're living in a village which is downstream. And there is suddenly a flood in the river. You know that upstream there was rain. You have not seen the rain, you have not felt the rain,
right,
but you're able to infer. So yes. Swami says that, in the previous discourse, Swami said that, and to believe only in that which is seen is actually a very senseless thing to do.
Right. Of course, this discourse itself is called Tattvamasi. And as we studied the last week, there are several layers of this Tattvamasi. It's almost as if Tattvamasi is true in every sense. You talk of it as a body, mind and soul. Then you talk of Tattvamasi as that thou art. And Swami gives Bhukti, Mukti, Rakti.
Right.
And there is Jiva, Deva, Prakriti. It's like a triangle. And there are several layers to this triangle. And Tattvamasi is something which is common at all levels.
Right.
It's fascinating because Swami is telling us how the rishis, although they understood its complete depth and they experienced this Tattvamasi, how they tried to explain to us using various analogies and various simple examples through which we could relate to and understand them. Then Swami gives this beautiful example of the water cycle. It's something maybe a 3rd or 4th standard student will learn in his class. But that simple example of the water cycle, it again reflects Tattvamasi.
Right. And Swami also speaks about the fruit and the root. And how, the leaf can say to the fruit.
Correct.
The root can say to the fruit, Tattvamasi. And Swami says in the same way, it is the relationship between God and man. In fact, before all of that, Swami says, this purity can be seen in children.
Very true.
It's so, I think, symbolic too, because if you look at a child, it's always very fascinating to think of a child being born, and it's just coming from one life form. You don't know where that division happens, where that separation happens.
Right.
For 30 years, 25 years, there is this one life form living. And suddenly another life form forms inside, and it has a separate soul for itself.
Right.
It has a separate existence for itself. When does that separation happen? And if you go by what Swami is saying here, Swami says the children have that purity. It's like, after that separation happens, you are still in that pure state where the duality has occurred, but it has not yet occurred in the mind.
Correct.
And then you go through a process of, we call it education, but clearly it is a phase of misinformation where you're given an identity.
Right.
You're told the child, this is your name. You're given a name. Till then you don't have a name.
You don't have a
name. A name is stuffed down your throat and you're told various things. You belong to this caste, you belong to this religion, you belong to this family, and this is what you are, this is your color, and this is what it is. And all the time you're being fed with this idea which gives you a separate identity.
In fact, I believe Swami has made an observation about children. He says they have no desires and they are under no illusion about the importance of their bodies. They are really not concerned, or of course, when it comes to hunger or few basic basic requirements. Other than that, they are in a way oblivious of their own bodies. They are so in tune with what they see. They are so one with what they experience. They forget their own bodies, and possibly that's the reason why Jesus Christ said, "Let the children come to me," because they pure souls. That represents the quality of heaven, possibly.
Right. I think in our undergraduate, there used to be a poem about a child, a very simple poem. He kind of describes what a child does when it's lying down.
Okay.
And he says that the wonderment of the child, when it realizes that the control of this body is within it. When it looks around, it looks at the various objects, it looks at various people. Then it suddenly looks at its own feet and sees that, hey, this is moving along with me. I have a control over moving it. Of course, he doesn't speak about the idea of doership or, the idea of what Swami is speaking here. But he says that wonderment of the child, the child puts catches its own leg and puts it in the mouth. And then it feels that, there is a connection. I bite it, I can feel it.
Right.
Any other object I bite, I don't feel it. This I feel it. And that slowly that idea of, this body is mine. And when you say that they don't have this idea that this body is what we are, how over a period of time it grows, and it's not wrong in that sense. Like, when Swami speaks about the water cycle, when Swami speaks about the seed growing into the tree, eventually giving the fruit, this is a natural process, but Swami says that to observe this and say that a division has happened, diversification has happened, I think is missing the point completely.
I'm not really remembering it to the point, but it is somewhat like this. When somebody asked Sri Nisargadatta Maharaj about children, so he said, yes, there is pure consciousness. There is pure consciousness and absolute purity in the child, but the child is not aware in that sense.
True.
So what's the difference between a child and a realized person? So the realized person is aware of his divinity. Realized person is able to consciously live in that state of awareness.
True.
While the child is there because there is no contamination, there is pure consciousness.
Right. In fact, somebody asked a spiritual master about the state of children who are, specially abled or retarded children.
Right.
Because they seem to be in that extended period of childhood.
Yes.
Many of them, they say that this person will be stuck in the thinking of a 6-year-old or thinking of a 2-year-old. The children who are like that, they're 16 years old, but their mind is of a 2-year-old. You kind of feel that probably are they stuck in that stage of purity for 2 years? A spiritual master says that no, it's not the case because they're not aware of that.
Right.
As you said, the children are not aware of their happiness. He says that, that soul which is journeying through the body, it will know that it is an impediment. Okay. It will know that it's a period of suffering for it. So though, the being as such, the mind will not see the pain, the mind will be like a child. But the soul knows that it's a period where it is going through some karma, which is...
In fact, here there's another beautiful statement. Yeah, Swami brought the children in the context that they see unity.
Right.
The children see unity in everything. They don't differentiate. And as long as their basic needs are met, they're one. And so he connected that with Tattvamasi. And he said that there is absolute unity. There is this beautiful analogy that can be drawn where Swami is making this statement. He says, the rishis harmonized people's higher aspirations with everyday life through the teaching of Tattvamasi. He says, through Tattvamasi, they brought in the spiritual as well as the mundane life. It connected both these aspects. And one very good example that comes through is the life of Prahalad himself.
Right.
Because he offered everything to the Lord and constantly in tune with the Lord. So, Tat Tvam Asi. So, everything that he did was in sync. It's very complicated to go through a lot of these details.
Right.
But here is a solution. I mean, with love for the Lord, he was constantly in tune with the Lord. And what did he achieve? Tattvamasi, that's the same thing.
In fact, the way Swami uses Tattvamasi to explain this, body, mind and Atma. As you said, you were talking about the devotion and the Lord.
Yeah.
Swami says the same thing. The body is gross, the Atma is the most subtle. The mind is that which bridges the body with the Atma. And that's why Swami says Tat is the Atma. Tvam is the body and Asi is the mind. So the mind's role is actually to connect this Atma with the mind. In fact, I just a few days back heard a person speaking about the similarity between the story of Adam and Eve and the Upanishadic story of the two birds sitting on the tree.
Okay.
There is that famous analogy of that bird which eats the fruit and relishes it, and the other bird which just watches the first bird eat and relish the fruit.
Right.
So you'd say it's actually very similar to Adam and Eve's story.
Okay.
And where, the other bird which is watching, it never flies away. It's still watching. It's, he says that, okay, you have indulged, you have done the thing, but I'm with you. I mean, I'm not going to go through the emotions the way you go through, but I'm with you. So he says it's very similar to what happens in the story of Adam and Eve. And he says that's why that, the mind is the thing which connects the two. There is this one Jivatma which is like going through the ups and downs of life. But what you really are is that Atman, and this mind is that which connects the two.
Yeah, I mean, and Swami gives so many layers. As you mentioned, the seed, the flower, the plant, the tree, and all this are all coming back into Tattvamasi. The leaf can say Tattvamasi, the seed can say Tattvamasi.
Right. Jiva, Deva and Prakriti, that is one thing which Swami says.
Yes.
Then as you mentioned earlier, Bhukti, Mukti and Rakti.
And in some other place, I think when Swami is speaking to the students, it's there in My Dear Students and in the chapter called Essence of Mahavakyas.
Okay.
So where Swami says, yes, Tattvamasi has been taken from Samaveda, and Samaveda is music, and music can connect Tat to us. Tvam.
Okay.
He says music can connect Tat and Tvam. He says that's a beautiful medium. And he says, but the music should be full of love. The music should be full of prema. He says, even a sea can be connected, consummated in between. If you have Tat and Tvam, he says through music you can bridge the gap. So that is one beautiful analogy.
All right. So I think we'll go to the next clip in the discourse. We played 2 clips. This will be the 3rd clip in that discourse.
ఉన్నది ఒక్కటే. There is only one thing that exists. అనేకత్వంగా రూపొందుతూ వస్తుండాలి. It takes different forms. అనేకత్వంలో ఉన్నటువంటి ఏకత్వమే భారతీయ సంస్కృతి యొక్క ప్రభావము అని కూడాను ఉపనిషత్తులు చాటుతూ వచ్చాయి. Upanishads started declaring that the essence of Indian culture lies in unity in diversity. కనుక ఏకత్వాన్ని మనం విస్మరించి అనేకత్వాన్ని విశ్వసించి మన జీవితమును వ్యర్థం చేసుకుంటున్నాం. We are wasting our life forgetting this unity, spending all the time in diversity. ఇక్కడ అకార ఉకార మకారములు. Here there are 3 syllables, akara, ukara and makara. ఈ మూడింటి యొక్క ఏక స్వరూపమే ఓంకారము. The unity of all these 3 is omkara. ఈ ఓంకారము యొక్క శబ్ద ప్రమాణమే ప్రణవము. The soundproof of this omkaram is pranavam. ఈ ప్రణవమే ప్రపంచ స్వరూపము. This pranavam is very form of this world. కనుక ఓంకారం అనేటువంటి స్వరూపమే ఈ జగత్తు. This world is very form of ఓంకారం. ఇవి రెండు కూడాను దివి నుండి భూమి వరకు, భూమి నుండి దివి వరకు ప్రసారం జరుగుతూనే ఉంటుండాలి. These two have been flowing continuously right from sky to earth and earth to sky. ఈ రెండింటి యొక్క ఏకత్వం లోపల ఉండినటువంటి యొక్క ఆత్మతత్వాన్ని గుర్తించటమే నిజమైనటువంటి పురుషత్వము అని కూడాను ప్రబోధిస్తూ వచ్చింది ఉపనిషత్తులు. Upanishads declared the real value of human life exists in understanding the unity between the two. కారణం ప్రతి మానవుని యందు కూడాను ఈ ప్రణవ శబ్దము అనేటువంటిది నిశ్శబ్ద రూపంలో నిలిచి ఉంటుండాలి. What's the reason? This pranava is present in the form of silence in everyone. ప్రణవం మనకు ఎక్కడా కనిపించటం లేదే, వినిపించటం లేదే అని మనం విచారించవచ్చు. You may inquire that you don't see pranava anywhere, that you don't listen to pranava. మన ఉచ్ఛ్వాస నిశ్వాసములు ఏమిటి? What do you mean by the breath? మన యొక్క దేహం నందు సంచరించేటువంటి యొక్క ఈ రక్తం యొక్క సంచారం ఏమిటి? How do you understand the blood circulation in human body? కనుక ఇవన్నీ కూడాను ప్రణవమయమైనటువంటివే. All these are full of pranava. చెట్లు గాలి వీస్తుండాలి, wind blows, కానీ ఆ గాలి యందు కూడాను ప్రణవనాదం మనం వినిపెడుతుండాలి. Even in the wind you hear the sounds of pranava. ఒక ఎలక్ట్రిక్ పోల్ దగ్గరికి పోయి నీవు నిల్చుకొని నీ చెవు ఆ పోల్ పైన పెట్టినప్పుడు ఓ అని ఆ శబ్దాన్ని మనం వినగలుగుతున్నాం. When you stand very close to an electric pole and listen, you listen to the sound of pranavamu om. అయితే ఈ ప్రణవమునందు కేవలము కొన్ని కల్పితమైనటువంటి వాటిని మనము కల్పించుకోవటం చేత అది ప్రణవంగా రూపొందడం మనం గుర్తించటం లేదు. Because we imagine certain things, therefore we are not able to recognize ఓంకారము there, ప్రణవం. మన నిత్య జీవితంలో ఉచ్ఛ్వాస నిశ్వాసములు జరుగుతున్నవి. In our daily life we breathe in and breathe out. మనము గాలిని పీల్చుకునే సమయం లోపల సో అని పీల్చుకుంటున్నాం. When we breathe in, there is sound of so. విడిచినప్పుడు hum. When breathe out, there is the sound hum. So hum. So hum. ఇవి రెండింటి యొక్క ఏకత్వం లోపల ఇదే నిజమైనటువంటి ఓంకారం ఉంటుండాలి. The real ఓంకారం lies in this fact of so and hum, the breathing in process. And సో అనేటువంటి పదము లోపల, హమ్ అనేటువంటి పదము లోపల ఉండినటువంటి అంతరార్థాన్ని మనం గుర్తుంచుకుంటే సో హమ్ అదే నేను, అది కూడా తత్వం అసే. When we understand the inner significance of these two so hum, that's equal to తత్వం. తత్వం అసే అనేటువంటి మూడు అక్షరాల్లో ఉండినటువంటిది ఏకం ఇత్ ఒక అక్షరమే అని చెప్తున్నాం. ఇత్ ఏకాక్షరం బ్రహ్మ, ఒకే అక్షరం అని అంటున్నామే, ఇది ఏ విధంగా ఒక అక్షరం అవుతుంది? The meaning of Tattvamasi could be said in single word, that is Omkara, the single word. How could that be? So ఇందులోపల సాలోక్య సారూప్య సామీప్య సాయుధ్యములకు సంబంధించినటువంటి సకారం మైనస్ అవుతుంది. In this first syllable so, the sakara, the first syllable is absent in all these four forms. ఎప్పుడు ఇది సకారం మైనస్ అవుతుంది? When it disappears. జాగ్రత్తను మరచి, when we forget this waking state, నిద్రావస్థలో నిలిచినప్పుడు, when we get into sleep, జాగ్రత్త యొక్క మంచి చెడ్డలను మనం విస్మరించినప్పుడు, when we forget the good and bad of the waking state, ఈ సో అనేటువంటి శబ్దము లోపల సకారం మైనస్ అయిపోయి కేవలము ఓ అని అవుతుంది. When we forget all these things, the sakara misses there and o remains. హమ్ అనేటువంటి యొక్క నిశ్వాసము లోపల ఇక్కడ హకారం మైనస్ అవుతుంది. In hum, the second syllable, the akara, జాగ్రత్తలో ఉండినంత వరకే సకార హకారములు ఈ యొక్క ఓంకారంతో లీనమవుతుంటాయి. So long we are in the waking state, we find sakara and hakara in ఈ జాగ్రత్తను విస్మరించి, when we forget the waking state, సూక్ష్మావస్థలో మనము ఈ గాఢ నిద్రలో ఉండినప్పుడు, when we enter into deep sleep, ఈ సకార హకారములు రెండు కూడాను అంతర్ధానం అవుతాయి. This sakara hakara, they disappear. కనుక సో అనేటువంటి పదములో సకారం పోయినప్పుడు ఏమవుతుంది? ఓ అవుతుంది. So in this first syllable so, when sakara disappears, o remains. హమ్ అనేటువంటి యొక్క నిశ్వాస లోపల హకారం పోయినప్పుడు అవుతుంది. In the second one, hum, when ha disappears, remains. O plus Om ఏకాక్షరం అయిపోయింది.
Therefore, in these two, O plus becomes Om.
సకారం హకారం రెండు చేరినప్పుడు సోహం అయిపోయింది. ఈ సకార హకారం రెండు పోయినప్పుడు ఓం అయిపోయింది.
With Sakara and Hakara, it becomes Soham. With these two words missing, it remains as
అనగా
Om.
జాగ్రత్త అవస్థలో ఉండినంత వరకు కూడాను మానవుడు ఈ ప్రాకృతమైనటువంటి జీవితంలో లీనమైపోయి తద్వారా ఈ ఏకాక్షరం బ్రహ్మ అనేటువంటి సత్యాన్ని మర్చిపోతున్నాడు.
In the waking state, man forgets the real nature, and he has got the spirit of Soham and forgetting
ఈ
Omkara.
ప్రపంచం మన దృష్టిలో ఉండినంత వరకే మనకు కూడాను దుఃఖములు ఆనందములు.
So long there is this awareness of the worldly pleasures, you have got the pleasure and the pain.
ఏనాడు నిద్రావస్థలో మనం ప్రవేశిస్తామో అప్పుడు ఈ జాగ్రత్త ప్రపంచం మనకు మరుగైపోతుంది.
The moment you enter into deep sleep, you
జాగ్రత్త
forget the waking
ప్రపంచం
state.
అనేటువంటిది మరుగైనప్పుడు మన యొక్క సుఖ దుఃఖములు కూడా మరుగైపోతాయి.
When this waking state is far from you, you are free from the pain and
దీనిని
pleasure.
పురస్కరించుకొని నిద్రే సమాధి స్థితి అన్నారు. ఆ నిద్రావస్థ యందు ఏ విధమైనటువంటి సుఖము కానీ దుఃఖము కానీ ప్రాకృతమైనటువంటి యొక్క జగత్తు కానీ మనకు కానరాక అనుభవం రాక నిలిచిపోయి ఉంటాయి.
In the deep sleep state, you do not experience any pain or pleasure.
కనుక మానవుడు దైవత్వాన్ని గుర్తించడానికి ఈ రకమైనటువంటి మార్గాన్ని మనం అనుసరించాలి.
So man should follow this path to realize divinity.
The only question which rises is, what are we doing awake?
That's true. Omkara, as Swami has brought it out, so beautiful, so beautiful. I don't think we have this unique explanation given anywhere else.
Right. I can't credit myself for having heard many discourses, but for the few hundreds we've heard Swami speaking about Omkar, about Soham, but this particular explanation which Swami has given, how Soham becomes Om. I think it's very unique and so beautifully explained, because we all know Swami says Soham means there are two, he and me, and Swami say that's how it is, reminding that you are the same. But at the same time, Swami is saying that how even that you and I exist only in the state where you see the duality, and that's in the waking state.
Very true. When we talk of Omkara, the letters written on the stupa come right in front of my face. Mm-hmm. It says, listen to the primeval pranava Om resounding in your heart as well as in the heart of the universe. So those words, those beautiful words probably given by Swami himself, resounding in your heart as well as in the heart of the universe. Mm-hmm. So in that spirit, it's all one.
Right.
When you go back to Omkara, when you go back to that state of Omkara, there is absolute unity.
Right.
I think that's what it comes to.
And of course, Swami goes on to say how that Omkara can be, heard in so many ways. Mm-hmm. Swami says, of course, it's in the breath. Then you can hear it in the howling of the wind when it's blowing. And then the electric pole. Of course, the other classic thing I think most of us would have heard is when you take a conch and put it to your ear.
Very true.
You hear that thing. Cosmologists, they will tell you that at the moment of Big Bang, and when there was the sudden expansion, there is a sound which was created. When objects move, you have that sound, just like how the wind is howling.
Right.
So they say that sound is actually audible even now, if you have this one. Right. And it's a fixed frequency. Wherever you hear in space, you will hear that sound, and they believe that is the basis of the entire creation.
It's like a ripple. In fact, the gravitational waves that were discovered, they said for the first time we can hear creation, we can hear the universe. And when they could actually translate that wave into a sound signal, it was just a click of that sort. They had to magnify it, I don't know how many times. But that sound was created 1.2 billion years ago. Can we believe it? I mean, it's so amazing. 1.2 billion years ago, due to the collision of two huge black holes and the combination of two black holes, this gravitational wave which was created, today we are able to hear that sound, and they say for the first time you are able to listen to the universe.
I think that's precisely how they would have discovered the Omkar itself, the ancient sages.
Right.
Because you see, now they say you have the Hubble Space Telescope. Mm-hmm. It's very, very so close, the similarity between what you talk of the ancient sages and the Hubble Space Telescope. I was reading about that. For many centuries, we had telescopes on the surface of the Earth.
Correct.
Which were trying to look into the sky, and they would see how many light years into space you can see. The reason they would do that is, like, suppose I'm able to see 1,000 light years into space, I'm seeing 1,000 light years behind in creation.
Yes, more towards the
towards the point of the beginning, the Big Bang, right? So they found that after a certain distance, they're not able to see. The reason is the light starts bending because of the Earth's gravitational force and the atmosphere.
Exactly.
It starts distorting, so they don't know whether they're seeing the light in its native form. So that's when somebody said that the only way you can do it is put a telescope on space and let it send the digital images, which will not be affected by the atmosphere.
Right.
So that's how the Hubble Space Telescope comes. They put it there, and now they say that 13.4 billion light years. The ultra deep field is the image which the Hubble Space Telescope has found. It's 13.4 billion, which means we're just 0.3 billion years before we can see the Big Bang. I mean, of course, there are a lot of other calculations, minus and plus, all of that. But that's how we've seen. But it's very similar to what the rishis did, because the rishis sat, and probably they would have, like how atmosphere was interfering with light. They found that my mind is actually interfering with the sound which is coming from the universe.
Beautiful.
And they go through this process by which they silence the mind, and they say the first thing what we hear is Omkar.
Right.
It's almost like that. That's why it's called the primeval sound. The Pranava, as Swami is saying.
Yes.
And it can still be heard.
As we're talking about science and about scientists, we take their word without any argument. We accept what they say. We say, okay, this click is produced 1.2 billion years ago.
Yeah.
Oh, wonderful.
That's it. We just believe it, right?
We just believe it. And look at Swami. Swami is giving us such profound truths, and our sages as well. So how many of us actually tuned in and believed in what they said? And if we completely and actually believed in what Swami is saying, I don't know what we would be doing at this moment.
No, I was listening to a talk by the famous journalist and Chennai, Cho Ramaswamy.
Yes.
He was talking, a very pragmatic speaker. He was telling, how can you as an individual stand up and say, I know everything, or I can know everything, or I am forget everything. How can you even say that I am the controller of my destiny? I mean, it is so obvious that there is some higher power which is ruling. See, here's a simple example. You go to a running race, okay, and let's say that you get the first place and I get the second place. Did you get the first place without me becoming the second, getting the second place? He said, so, how much ever you practice, your taking that first place depends on my losing.
Correct.
So he said, in everything that you achieve in life, a factor which is beyond your control is a part of that victory. So he said, that is for every mundane activity. How can you say that I decide what to do? I am doing this. I wanted to become a doctor. I became a doctor. It's impossible, and it's meaningless to say that. And he, in fact, says of one incident which happened. Some people want to meet the Shankaracharya of Kanchi.
Okay.
Paramacharya was there. Some people come from all the way from Delhi. They want to meet him. So he accompanies them. So, he has a lot of respect for him. But during the journey, he gets a doubt, it seems. He says one particular thing or what Paramacharya said or did, he did not agree with. So he said, I have a lot of respect for him, but why did he do this? It doesn't seem like the right thing to do. So they had a discussion in the journey, and they go. They go to his presence, and the first thing he asks is, unless you know why I did that, your mind will not sit quiet. So let me explain to you. He said, how do you explain that? How do you explain that? He's sitting so many hundreds of miles away. There is something more than you can understand and reason.
When you go beyond, as Swami said, Salokyam, Sarupyam, that S of that, that is in the waking state. So when you go beyond that, there is that unity. But before that, there is this beautiful point about silence. And he says, Om is present within every individual as silence. I think we should just keep silent for a while and let Om sink in. It's so beautiful, so beautiful. Swami has mentioned elsewhere, I believe, that in the state of Turiya,
Okay.
Om exists as a letterless resonance which turns out into silence. It's like a resonance. You cannot, I would say, define it by a letter. You cannot define it by a pronunciation or an a or ma or whatever. It exists as a resonance in the state of Turiya. It's like the only thing that exists. It's like the fabric that connects everything. It's the most basic underlying principle of entire creation, if I may say. I don't know if it's right to say it's the God particle or the God fabric or what it is. So it is the most basic aspect of everything. That is Omkara.
It's probably like, you have a projector and you want to see a movie. The Omkar probably is like that white screen. It's not God as such, but it's the basis of everything.
Yeah.
I mean, we all are there. We all are projected on that. It's like the characters projected on the screen are trying to look for the screen. It's almost like.
In fact, there again, Nisargadatta Maharaj defines it, just expresses that experience in a very interesting way. He says, have you ever felt that this entire universe is just a speck on that consciousness which you are actually? That fabric, that basis, that Atman which you are, which is defined by something dark and which has nothing in it but has infinite potential. It's something so vast and it's omnipresent rather. Omnipresent, dark, means absolutely nothing. Nothing defines it. It defines everything. But it is omnipresent. And he says, where this whole creation and this cosmos is just one small speck in that consciousness. It's difficult to imagine.
My God. I mean, to imagine that infinity is within each one of us.
Right.
I mean, I always see this, even when you take a flight, when you're just about 3,000 feet, 1,000 feet above ground,
Yes.
you suddenly realize how small man is.
Right.
How small each one of us is. And at that time to think that, I am infinite. I mean, you realize that you're so small, like a speck, and then to realize that infinity is within each one of us.
Very true. In fact, Swami very beautifully says, Om is the phone number. You want to dial directly, hotline. You want a hotline to God. Om is the phone number. And another beautiful thing which Swami says in Dhyanavahini, in fact, he just clubs Namasmara and meditation as one exercise, one sadhana.
Okay.
There's no meditation without Namasmara, there's no Namasmarana. Means Namasmarana can lead to meditation that way. But he says, before you chant the name of your chosen deity, you should add Omkara in front of it. You should chant Om and then add the name of the deity whom you adore and visualize his form. And visualize his form right from the top till down and down to top. That's all is meditation. Nothing else is required. So that's it.
Right. And of course, I don't know whether Swami is going to tell more about Soham, because so much Swami has said, he would say that there's nothing more required. Just sit and observe your breath.
Breath, true.
Because it's telling you the truth. It's telling you the answer to the ultimate question is being told by your breath. And Swami would say that, 21,000, I don't know that number, so many thousand times. You are telling yourself the answer, but you are not listening to it. Okay, we'll go to the next clip in that discourse. And let's see what Swami has to say further.
ఉపనిషత్స్ ఇవి పెద్ద పెద్ద పదములుగా ఉండినటువంటి దానిని చిన్న చిన్న వాక్యములుగా క్రోడీకరించుకొని
the high sounding words have been combined together.
సామాన్యమైనటువంటి మానవులకు,
To ordinary men,
నిత్య జీవితంలో
in the daily life,
అనుభూతికి, ఆనందమునకు అనుగుణంగా అవి రూపొందుతూ వచ్చాయి.
they have been explained to his experience and to give him the bliss, the happiness.
ఉపనిషత్.
There are three things here. Upanishad.
ఉప అనగా సమీపము.
Upa means proximity.
నీ అనగా క్రింద.
Ni means below.
షత్ అనగా కూర్చో.
Sat means sit down.
అనగా గురువునకు, పెద్దలకు వినయంగా నీవు అనుసరించాలి అనేటువంటిది దీని యొక్క అంతరార్థం.
The inner meaning of this is you should show respect to your preceptors and elders.
దూరా దూరే అంతకేశ అనింది వేదం. నీకు భగవంతుడు ఎంత దూరమని నీవు అనుకుంటున్నావో అంత దూరంగా ఉంటున్నాడు. భగవంతుడు ఎంత సమీపుడని నీవు భావిస్తున్నావో అంత సమీపుడిగా ఉంటున్నాడు.
The Veda declares, if you think the God is far away from you, he is really far away. If you feel that he is quite close to you, he is quite near.
ఈ దూరమునకు సమీపమునకు నీ భావమునే కాని దోషము, భగవంతుడు ఏనాడు దూరము కాని దగ్గర కాని సర్వత్రా ఉంటున్నాడు.
It's only your feelings to take him far off or near. For God there is neither these two things. He is quite close to you.
అణువులో అణువుగా ఘనములో ఘనముగా ఉంటున్నాడు.
He is the small among an atom and largest of all Lord.
కనుకనే అణోరణీయాన్ మహతో మహీయాన్, ఇలాంటి దివ్యమైనటువంటి ఒక తత్వాన్ని ప్రతి మానవుడు కూడాను పరిశోధనలు చేసి విచారణ సలిపి శ్రద్ధాభక్తితో దీనిని విచారణ చేయాలనుకున్నప్పుడు తప్పక దానిని అర్థం చేసుకుంటారు.
Man can understand if he proceeds and makes a kind of inquiry with all the devotion and sincerity of
కానీ
purpose.
ఈనాటి మానవుడు తెలుసుకొనుటకు ఏమాత్రము ప్రయత్నించడం లేదు.
But today man is not making any effort to understand.
ఈ అనిత్యము అశాశ్వతము అసత్యమైనటువంటి యొక్క జగత్ వ్యాపారములు యందు తమ సమస్తమును కూడాను అంకితం గావిస్తున్నాడు.
Man is dedicating his life, spending all the time in this ephemeral, transitory,
కానీ
temporary
నిత్య
thing.
సత్యమైనటువంటి యొక్క దివ్యమైనటువంటి మార్గమునందు తన కాలమును అణుమాత్రమైన కూడాను అంకితం చేయటం లేదు.
He is not spending a moment of time to contemplate on that which is permanent, that which exists, that which is true.
ఇదే మానవుని యందు ఏర్పడినటువంటి అశ్రద్ధ.
This is lack of sincerity of purpose.
కనుకనే జ్ఞానము శ్రద్ధావాన్ లభతే జ్ఞానం, శ్రద్ధ కలిగినటువంటి వానికే జ్ఞానం లభ్యమవుతుంది.
Therefore one can have wisdom if he has steadfastness or shraddha.
శ్రద్ధ లేనప్పుడు ఏమాత్రం కూడాను సమీపంలో ఉండినటువంటి దాన్ని కూడాను మనం అనుభవించలేము.
When there is no shraddha or steadfastness, even though it is close to you, you cannot experience.
కనుక మానవుడు తనకు అశాంతికి మూల కారణం ఏమిటో గుర్తించడానికి తగిన ప్రయత్నం చేయటం లేదు.
Man is not making an effort to understand why he lost peace.
బ్రహ్మ మానస పుత్రుడైనటువంటి నారదుడు సర్వకళా పరిపూర్ణుడైనప్పటికీ సర్వశాస్త్ర ప్రవీణుడైనప్పటికీ అప్పుడప్పుడు అతనిలో అశాంతి పెళ్ళుపుకుతూ వచ్చింది.
Narada, though being a scholar of all Vedas and Shastras, he too didn't have peace at one time.
కానీ ఈ అశాంతికి కారణం ఏమిటో గుర్తించాలని సనత్ కుమార్ దగ్గరికి వెళ్ళాడు.
To know the cause for the absence of peace, he approached Sanat Kumara.
సనత్ కుమార, నా అశాంతికి కారణం ఏమిటో బోధించి దానిని నిర్మూలము గావించి దానికి తగినటువంటి జ్ఞానాన్ని ప్రసాదించమని ప్రార్థించాడు.
He prayed Sanat Kumara, please explain why I don't have peace. Tell me the way to acquire that peace and be happy.
అప్పుడు సనత్ కుమారు నారదుని ప్రశ్నిస్తాడు. నారదా, నీ క్వాలిఫికేషన్ ఏమిటి? నీవు ఏమేమి చదివావు? నీలో ఏమేమి అర్హత ఉంటుండాలి అని ప్రశ్నించాడు.
Then Sanat Kumara questioned Narada, "O Narada, what are your credentials? What are your qualifications? How do you deserve?"
64 విద్యలు ఘనమారుగా నేర్చినట్టి ఆనారదుడే, 64 విద్యలు ఘనమారగా నేర్చినట్టి ఆనారదుడే, నిరవధిక శాంతి గనుగొని పరమానందమును తాను పొందగలేదే. 64 విద్యలు నేర్చినటువంటి వాడు నారదుడు.
Narada learnt all the 64 types of knowledge.
ఏదో 1-2 సబ్జెక్ట్స్ కాదవి.
Not merely 1 or 2 subjects.
64 సబ్జెక్ట్స్.
64 subjects.
అంతేకాక 6 శాస్త్రములు, 4 వేదములు, 24 ఉపాంగములు కూడా చదివినటువంటి వాడు.
6 Shastras and 4 Vedas and other Upangas also he studied.
ఇన్ని విద్యలు నేర్చి ఏమి ప్రయోజనం?
What is the use in learning all these things?
ఎన్ని విద్యలు నేర్చి ఏమి ఫలం?
What is the use of acquiring all knowledge?
తన్నొసట వ్రాత తప్పించ ఎవరి వశం?
Who can make you escape from destiny?
చెడ్డ బుద్ధులు తన చేరినేని
If bad feelings enter into your mind,
బెండుబారును బుద్ధులు బండబారు.
the mind, the intellect also becomes dry.
రాక్.
It becomes like a dead rock.
కనుక నారదునికి అశాంతి రావడానికి కారణం ఏమిటి?
What's the reason for the loss of peace?
నేను విద్యావంతుడను,
I'm an educated man.
నేను సర్వశాస్త్ర ప్రవీణుడు అనేటువంటి అహంకారమే ఈ దీనినంతా కూడా మరుగుపరుస్తూ వచ్చింది.
This ego that is an expert in all Shastras and Vedas.
ఈ అశాంతికి మూల కారణము అహంకారమే.
For the loss of peace, the cause is ego.
కనుక అన్ని విన్నటువంటి యొక్క సనత్ కుమారుడు
Sanat Kumara, having listened to
ఓహో
all,
నీ విద్యల యొక్క ప్రభావం ఇంతేనా అని కేవలం పెదవి విరుచుకున్నాడు.
having listened to all this, he felt, oh, this is thing that you acquired, having learnt all the 64
ఇది
types of
కేవలము
education.
మాట మాత్రమే అన్నాడు.
This merely only a word, he said.
ఈ డిగ్రీస్ అంతా కూడా మాటలు మాత్రమే.
The degrees are only merely words.
ఇది కేవలం ఏమాత్రము నామ మాత్రమే.
They are only for namesake.
ఈ నామమునకు అతీతమైనటువంటి కొన్ని ఉన్నాయి.
There are certain things beyond name, O Narada.
నారదుడు చాలా ఆశ్చర్యపడ్డాడు.
Narada was
ఈ
astonished.
64 విద్యలు నేర్చినటువంటి వాడిని కేవలం ఇది నామమాత్రం అంటున్నాడే, దీనంత ఇంత సులభంగా త్రోసివేస్తున్నాడే అని ఆశ్చర్యపడ్డాడు.
He was taken aback because he has not counted my 64 types of education subjects I have learned. He has simply brushed it aside.
నామము కంటే గొప్పది మరొకటి ఉన్నది నారద అన్నాడు.
He said beyond name there's something greater.
నామము కంటే అనగా గొప్పది వాక్కు.
More than the name, the word is important.
వాక్కు కంటే గొప్పది మనస్సు.
More than the word, the mind is important.
మనస్సు కంటే గొప్పది సంకల్పము.
More than the mind, the will is great.
సంకల్పం కంటే గొప్పది చిత్తము.
More than the will, the
చిత్తము
chitta.
కంటే గొప్పది ధ్యానము. ధ్యానం.
More than chittamu, the meditation is more
జ్ఞానము కంటే
greater.
గొప్పది జ్ఞానము.
Beyond meditation is jnanamu greater.
జ్ఞానము కంటే గొప్పది నీరు.
More than jnanamu, the water is
నీరు
great.
కంటే గొప్పది తేజస్సు.
Greater than water is tejas.
తేజస్సు కంటే గొప్పది ప్రాణము.
Greater than tejas is
ఈ
prana life.
ప్రాణతత్వాన్ని అర్థం చేసుకున్నప్పుడే తత్వం అసి నీకు అర్థమవుతుంది అన్నాడు.
When you understand the nature, the principle of life, then only you can understand the principle of Tattvamasi.
కనుక ప్రాణతత్వాన్ని మనం మొట్టమొదటి అర్థం చేసుకోవాలి.
Therefore, we should understand the life nature.
If Swami is going to explain what he said in those last 2-3 lines next week, then it's going to be an absolutely wrong place to stop this discourse at, because what Swami said in that last line was so profound that, of course, we'll come to that eventually. Swami spoke initially about, again, Upanishads and how Upanishads have this, knack of condensing very, very complex philosophies and concepts into
Right.
very simple ideas. And, Tattvamasi, Swami says, is also one like that, where a complex idea is condensed and given in a simple sentence. At one point, Swami says so emphatically, when one resolves to reach the glorious divinity, and one perseveres in spiritual energy with faith and devotion, one will definitely achieve the goal.
Yes, that is something very beautiful. In fact, that reassurance. That reassurance, as I was just listening to this, suddenly my mind just went back. Many years back, when we had gone as school children to Kodaikanal. And, there are 2 rooms. The inside room where Swami is sitting with all the students whom he has brought to
Right,
Kodaikanal.
right.
So they are able to sit right next to him, right around him. And we who had come on our own, we were sitting on the outside room.
Okay.
Okay, we were sitting in the outside room, and I was looking through the window. And I was thinking, wow, how fortunate these 2 boys are. They're sitting right next to Swami. And that scene just flashed in my mind just now when you were saying Upanishad. There was Swami. Of course, it happens again in thrice sessions. You're right at the feet of Swami. The students had that opportunity to sit right at the feet of Swami. Some of them actually pressing his feet, and some of them and just you're literally looking up to him. Upanishad, you're sitting right there. And what is Swami talking about? The greatest of truths. The greatest of truths. And that Upanishad, that visual scene just comes to my mind. It's so beautiful. And when Swami reassures that yes, with faith and devotion you can achieve it, that is so beautiful, because how many people are there to give you that complete knowledge and say, here it is, if you have the capacity you can take it.
Right. Again, goes back to that magical word Swami often uses, Shraddha. Swami says so much is in that. Shraddhavan labhate jnanam. You don't need anything else. All that you need is earnestness. I've been thinking about this because there's a kind of a row which is going on. You have one Professor Pollock from America who has been roped in to translate some of the ancient works of the Upanishads and the Vedas and all that. He's a scholar, there's no doubt about that. He's a Sanskrit scholar, he's a scholar of Indology and all that. A lot of Indian groups which are having problems with him being in that group, because in the past he has been very critical about some of these works.
Okay.
He has spoken a little, not in very glowing terms about Upanishads and this one. When you look at it, here is this body of work, be it Bhagavad Gita or be it Upanishads. I think the first thing is you have to believe that there is something of essence in this. If you start your journey of exploring this text with skepticism, it is like, you have a needle in a haystack. You don't have the desire to find the needle, but you're searching for it. The chances of you finding it is so less. On the other hand, if you have the Upanishads and you start with this Shraddha which Swami is saying, Swami has told you, suppose Swami gives you, Upanishad and says all your answers will be answered in this Upanishad. And you start your exploration with that faith. I will definitely find it. I think you will definitely find it.
Right.
So it is so important to, start with that Shraddha, start with that complete belief that, yes, this can give me that ultimate experience.
In fact, in some other place, Swami has mentioned another meaning of the word Upanishad. He says Upa means studying. Okay, you're learning, you're studying, you're acquiring. Nishta, with steadfastness.
Right.
Upanishad. So he said with Nishta, with steadfast. And Shad is when you actually attain that ultimate reality. So in the word Upanishad itself, there is Nishta, there is Shraddha that is required.
Right.
That has to...
this simple thing of Upanishad, Swami says, you sit close, you sit down. So much it means. When you say sit close, it is not simply that physical proximity. When you speak about the Trai sessions and Kodai, it was not just sitting next to Swami. It's that intimacy which was there. Kalidasa, it seems, describes, I was saying in one of the first few episodes, he says a teacher is one who is so desperate to save the disciple, who's so much obsessed about the welfare of that student. He is only an acharya. Anybody can be a teacher, but who is an acharya is that who has that. That was the passion with which Swami would say. And the same passion with which the students would go and sit. Because I remember I was talking to one old student a few years ago. He was saying that I think one of the Kodai trips, or after Swami came back from Kodai, Swami was invited for lunch at somebody's house. And there was a huge dining table. We know how the spread is when Swami is invited. And at the head of the table, they had arranged it for Swami. Okay, and Swami went and sat on this chair. And they had a flush chair, very beautiful chair. But one thing which they forgot to do was the chair was a little taller for Swami. Okay, so when Swami went and sat on it, Swami's feet were not reaching the ground and they had not put any footstool. Okay. Swami did not complain, as always. Swami went and sat. The moment Swami sat there, the two students on either side of Swami's chair, they noticed this. Immediately they went and sat under the table so that Swami can put his feet on their lap.
Oh, so beautiful.
There was no conversation which happened. Swami sat and his feet did not reach. Immediately these two boys went under the table. And Swami also very, silently put his... that intimacy, when you say Upanishad, you go sit next to the Guru, near the Guru. It's not just physically near the Guru. It is with that, that fondness, with that intimacy with that master.
Exactly. That's what these scenes just well up. Even for a couple of months, in the Kulwant hall, Swami would sit and keep talking, and people would just sit and listen. And there's even in informal.
Even in Trai, that scene of Swami will come and sit in the Jula, and invariably there'll be a few boys standing on top. Swami will say, "Come." Make space.
Come in.
Right. Come closer.
We start with Emi Samacharam. And Swami has said that when the Guru is in that state, Tat Stan, and the Sishya is in that Tvam Stan. So he says the Sishya has the right to ask questions to the Guru, and the Guru has to provide the answers.
Right.
Because he is in that place. So it comes to the same thing. He says when you have that Shraddha, you will attain it. When you ask your questions, when you present your difficulties, he is bound to give you answers. He is bound to clear all your doubts. Because he is in that Guru Sthan and you are in the Shishya Sthan. So he says, the right of a student is to ask and the right of the Guru is to give the solution. How beautiful it is.
And then, of course, this last part, as we were saying, where Swami puts it as a dialogue between Sanat Kumara and Narada.
Right.
Where Narada is so lost and he is not in peace within. And then Swami says he has so much of knowledge. And what a beautiful this one, all your degrees, Swami says, it's only a name. All the degrees, only a title, it's only a name. You're not going to carry it. And the way Swami says that what is more important than the name, is speech. Swami says Vak is more important. Almost like saying that all the knowledge that you've gathered, if it cannot be reflected in your speech,
correct.
I mean, what is the point? If you're not able to share it with somebody, if you're not able to pass it on, then it's dead knowledge. And then Swami says it should not stop at the level of speech. Greater than speech is the mind. I mean, if your mind does not get purified with the knowledge that you have,
right,
then Swami would say the Chinnakatha, that the idol which they take a metal wire and he puts it through the ear and it comes through the other ear. The king will say that no, this is not a good idol. The next one is he puts it to the ear and comes out through the mouth. He says it's better but not the best.
Wire, just a
right.
wire.
And then he says the third one is put through the ear and goes inside. He says this is the best. So it's like the Swami says, it should reflect in speech, but even better than it reflecting in speech is when it results in the purification of one's own mind. Swami said that mind is greater. And Swami says it's not just mind, but it is the memory, the chitta aspect.
The will rules the mind.
Right.
Then after the will comes the memory. Chitta is more powerful than the will.
Right.
And then after the will, he says meditation. Then comes the next level is jnana. And then comes water.
Right.
Water is better than wisdom.
Water is better than wisdom.
So that remains...
right. And then tejas is greater than water.
And then life force. Prana is greater than brilliance.
My God. We'll just have to hope that Swami clarifies that in the next part of the discourse.
True. And if you understand that life force, you will understand Tattvamasi. There is some connection with what Swami had told in the 1990 series as well about the Hridayam.
Right.
Hridayam. He was saying, what is Hridayam? What is heart? That which is omnipresent, that is which is present everywhere. So if you relate yourself to that Hridayam, that heart, then you are in sync with the cosmic.
Right. I mean, if you ask me, that concept of the heart, I think is the most misunderstood of all. When people so flippantly use that idea, no, I feel from my heart. My heart indicated that this was the soulmate. Oh my God. Swami would really just rubbish all those things. He would say, it's all that your mind, which has its own likes and dislikes, playing up games with you. All attractions and all such feelings of desires can arise only from the mind. What comes from the heart is pure clarity. What comes from the heart. That's what Swami says, if you can turn, as you were saying, turn to the heart, it'll again come back to this Tattvamasi, because there is no difference. The very idea that you feel that I want so-and-so or I want this object, it only comes from duality and it's not coming from the heart.
In fact, this Tattvamasi itself, Swami gives a very, very beautiful analogy. And he explains it, it's like our life is like a rose plant, he says.
Okay.
And you want to pluck the rose. Okay. So first you see the plant, that is concentration. You see the flower, you see the rose, you see that's the concentration. Then you pluck the rose carefully, that is contemplation. And you offer it to the Lord, that is meditation.
Right.
And he says, when you do that, when you offer it to the Lord, then that will enable you to realize Tattvamasi. So he says that when you have that rose in your hand, which is pure love. So he says the thorn is the thorns of desires, and then the leaves are all the gunas, and the branches are all relationships. So you get rid of all that. Then you have only the rose in your hand, and when you offer it to the Lord, that will enable you to reach Tattvamasi. It's only Swami who can do that.
Right. And there is no explanation from Swami which is complete, which we could say that no explanation is complete if it does not culminate in bhakti and love.
Prema, that's
right?
true.
It's absolutely, because this morning we were discussing on another topic where Swami says, you can do enough seva, you can go and serve everybody, but unless and until that seva transforms your heart to believe that, this is, I'm serving the Lord in all these forms. It doesn't, get complete. So there is nothing. Karma does not find fulfillment. Jnana does not find fulfillment unless it, finally blossoms into this love. As Swami said, that's what it is when you avoid the thorn of desires. It is that jnana aspect. You sit and you kind of discriminate all the time. But at the end of it, it has to be an offering. It has to be out of love and offering.
I mean, from all that we discussed today, Omkara and Soham and Upanishad, such profound thoughts and such, each is an ocean in itself. But still this sentence intrigues me, like Om is present in each one of us as silence. And I think each one has to get into that zone of silence, and only then we can experience that. In fact, Swami told one of the singers, he said, what is the Shruti you are practicing in? Swami says, listen to the waves in the ocean and sing along with that, in that Shruti, in that scale. That is Omkara. So, that Omkara is actually present in everything in this cosmos. And when we vibrate with that in our silence, that is when we silence the mind, I suppose, then you are in perfect sync with Omkara.
Something very similar was told by Guru Karaikudi Mani when we spoke to him.
Okay.
He spoke of a very, very different take on what beat is. If you speak to him, he is the devotee of rhythm.
Yes, very true.
Rhythm is his a form of divinity, and he is a devotee of rhythm.
And for us, he is the god of rhythm.
Right, he is the god of rhythm. Because he would say that, he shared a poem which he had written in Tamil, and in that he says, rhythm is not the beat. It is the silence between the beat.
Oh,
he says that is the rhythm. Most of us, concentrate on the sound, but the real rhythm is that silence which repeats itself between sounds.
Beautiful. How amazing.
Right. So I think we'll have to end the session with that. Dear listeners, we hope that you'll definitely come back for the next week, because definitely, after being 10 years, 15 years, 20 years with Swami and listening to discourses, still each one of this is like a bolt from the sky. Right. It's so enlightening, and we hope you're all enjoying as much as Sai Prakash and myself are. So we offer this humble effort of ours at Swami's Lotus Feet. And thank you all for being with us. Do join us again next week. Thank you. Jai Sai Ram.